Sometimes you want to take several layers and animate them as a single group, and then have some of them animate on their own within that larger animation. If you were to use one of those layers as the parent, it could get really messy. So what you need is a separate parent, something that's invisible that controls all of them as a group. Well, to the rescue comes something called the null object layer. So I'm going to show you how to use null object layers as parents in this lesson. To follow along, go to Working Files, After Effects Projects, and open up 1402 Null Object. So what we have here is a group of folks riding their bikes, and we've got some text and shape layers. And I want to be able to take this group of text, it's actually 2 layers of text and the shape layer, and connect all 3 of them to this boy in front, and then connect all 3 of these to this child back there. And then within the group, I want them to animate a bit. I want this oh boy to get larger, and this is fun to come on later using opacity, and then have them all fade away later. So if I were to do that by, let's say, having one of them as the parent, it might get messy. So it's easier to create a parent that's outside of the group but invisible. And to do that, we create a null object layer. Just right-click down on the timeline and go New, Null Object right there. And I want to change the name of this so I can keep track of it. So I'm just going to press Enter there and type in boy in front. And while we're at it, let's add a second null object layer for the child there in back. I presume that's a boy. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Null Object, just to show the other way to add a null object layer. Press Enter again and call this boy in back, like so. So now we have 2 of those guys. Now, they're red boxes. That's what a null object layer looks like. You won't see this when you render it, just there for your convenience. And you don't have to see it if you don't want to. At some point when you want to preview this, you might want to turn that box off just by turning the visibility off for the layer. But we have 2 red boxes there, and it might get kind of confusing here. It's best to kind of differentiate them in some way. So I'm going to click on these little labels here. The boy in front is going to use this blue text here. So I'm going to click on that and do something like, let's say, blue. There you go. Makes it easy. And do the boy in back. He's going to be purple text. So I'll click on purple. How about that? That will help us differentiate the 2 of those guys. So now I want to be able to have the null object layer, this first one, the boy in front, follow the boy's motion. And when I do keyframes for that, then I can connect all of these guys to the null object layer, and they will follow along as well. So I'm going to open up Scale and Position for the boy in front's null object layer. So S for Scale and Shift P for Position. Get the current time indicator to the beginning of this thing and go click, click to turn on keyframes for that. And let's move this thing over. I'm going to grab the anchor point there in the upper left-hand corner. That's where the anchor point is for a null object layer, and put it right there on his head. Now let's go forward a little ways. We'll do a rough animation here. I'll worry about scale later, so we're just going to take care of position for now. We'll just do scale with 1 additional keyframe at the end. It's pretty easy to do it that way. Just have it grow gradually throughout the process here. So I'm going to go forward a little bit. We're not going to have a perfect motion following process here, but it's going to be reasonably good, especially since it's text, so we need to be perfectly connected. A little bit farther here. There we go. And finally off screen like that. And now I'll take care of the scale by knocking it up to around 200% or so, something like that. So it'll grow throughout the process there. We'll just show you that again and watch the track of that little blue box as we go along here as it gets larger and follows that young man. Now I want to be able to connect these 3 layers, and there are 3 different separate layers, to that null object layer. And we know that we use parenting to do that. So I'm going to right-click here in the column header and say Columns and Parent. That adds this little parent column. I want to go down and get those 3 guys and close this thing down so you have a little more real estate here. So I've got, let's say, Shape Layer 1, oh boy, and this is fun. Those are those 3 things there. So click on the top one and shift-click on the third one. Now they're all selected. And I can just grab 1 pick whip and drag it to boy in front like that. And now they're connected. And if I just leave it like this, you'll see that they'll work along with it. But I need to put them in the right place at the get-go here. So I'm going to drag them down there now, right to that spot, and connect it that way. And now they'll follow along from that point. You can always move them like that. And that looks pretty good. But what I want to do now is animate these things within that group. So let's go on down here and take a look at those 3. Click away to deselect them all. I want oh boy to get large for a while and then get small. So I'm going to press on S for oh boy. And we'll let it go in a little bit, and then turn on keyframe for scale. And then right about here, we'll make it get much larger, like that. And then bring it back down to 100% or so, down like that. Okay. And then I want this is fun to come on later. So I open up, let's say this is fun. I can press T for opacity there. I want it to come on, let's say, after oh boy gets larger. So let me take a look at those keyframes for the oh boy. I'll go back to S to see the keyframes there. So right about here, we want to see this is fun come on screen. So I set opacity there for 0 and bring it on a little bit later. So we see 100% opacity like so. There we go. And let's see how that works. So you see him come on, it gets larger, starts getting smaller. This is fun comes on after that. And right about here, I think we want to start fading them out. So I'm going to click on all these guys. Press T for opacity twice so we can get back on again. Click away so we don't have them all selected again. I'm going to click on the opacity diamonds there for that one because it's already turned on. Click on this one here because it wasn't turned on. And then we'll just fade those guys out to 0 here. I can select all 3 of them to do that and drag it all down to 0. So let's see if we get that to behave. There we go. It all goes away. But you can't use opacity in parenting, so you got to do it there within those layers. I'm going to quickly go through the other side here so we can have them work as well, just so you can see how that works again, just kind of as a little backup plan here. So I'm going to click on the boy and back now. I want to open up scale and shift P for position for him and take the purple one, because that's the one that we're dealing with here, and drag that to the head of that young man right there. Set keyframes for him. And we would do the same process. We'd follow along like this. We'd pull that up like so. We do a couple more little bits of position animation here. I think you see how this works. I'll just kind of zap through here really quickly. There we go. A little bit farther. And what we'll do is we'll have his stuff come on a little bit later. Go over here. And we're finally done there. And we'll drag him off like so. And we will increase the scale for him to about 200% at that point. Okay. Now what I want to do is animate his individual text. I need to grab all 3 of them, so I go watch out. I'm catching up. Shape layer, got them all selected. I can take the pick whip, the boy and back like that. There we go. Now they're all connected. I can take all 3 of them and put them right over his head like so. And I think you get the message here. I can then use opacity or scale and have them come on later after his come on and have them change size and fade in and out just as this one did as well. So I think you see now how you can use a null object layer to control a group of layers and have them animate individually within that group.